"You're not what I ordered." Jasper Whitfield hated himself the moment the words left his mouth, because he heard how they sounded out loud. Not like a man surprised, not like a man confused, like a man receiving the wrong shipment at a store counter. The platform at Whitefish Station smelled of hot iron and pine sap. Summer in northwest Montana had a bright, sharp kind of heat that never fully hid the mountain's promise of winter. The train hissed and clicked as it settled, steam curling upward like breath in prayer. Jasper stood at the edge of the crowd, hat in his hands, palms damp despite the dry air. He had faced grizzlies on narrow ridges and blizzards that erased the world. None of that had made his heart pound like this. Because today his loneliness had a name and a timetable, a mail-order bride. He had written to the Matrimonial Correspondence Society with the careful precision of a man who believed he could build safety with rules. Woman aged 25 to 35. Used to frontier work, capable with a stove and a ledger, temperament steady, experience preferred. He had chosen Dorothy Hartford from Wyoming because her letter sounded competent, and her photograph looked like a woman who would not break in the mountains. The train doors opened. Passengers descended, carrying trunks and children and the tiredness of travel. Jasper searched for the slender blonde from the photograph. Instead, a girl stepped down slowly, as if each movement had been planned to avoid drawing attention. She was enormous, far larger than any woman Jasper had seen in town, her body straining against a traveling dress that had been altered too quickly and too poorly. Her face was young, still soft around the cheeks. Dark hair pulled back severely, eyes the color of wet earth, wary and resigned. In her hands was a sign, held with both arms as if it weighed more than wood. Mr. Jasper Whitfield. Jasper felt the world tilt. He walked toward her because his body moved even when his mind began to accept what it was seeing. He stopped close enough to smell dust and train smoke clinging to her clothing, close enough to see the shine of sweat at her hairline. "Are you Dorothy Hartford?" he asked, already knowing the answer. The girl flinched. "No, sir." Her voice was thin from exhaustion, but steady enough to hurt. "My name is Beatrice Hartford," she said. "Dorothy is my sister." Jasper's jaw tightened. Anger rose fast, hot and protective of the small dignity he had left. He was a fool for doing this in the first place, but he had been honest in his letters. He had paid the travel fees. He had trusted the society. He had expected an adult woman who had chosen this. "Where is she?" Jasper demanded. Beatrice's cheeks flushed dark red. People nearby pretended not to listen, but their heads angled toward the drama like sunflowers turning to light. "She ran away," Beatrice whispered. 3 days before she was supposed to leave. She eloped with a gambler. Jasper's stomach dropped. "She what?" Beatrice swallowed. Her hands tightened around the sign until her knuckles blanched. "She said the contract was paid," she continued, voice shaking now. "She said if I didn't come, Father would have to repay you, and we don't have the money. We'd lose our ranch." She looked up at him, and Jasper saw tears held back by sheer stubbornness. "I know I'm not what you ordered," she said. "I know I'm too young, too fat, too everything." The words came out like a practiced confession, something she had repeated to herself on the train until it stopped hurting enough to say. "But please," she added quickly, rushing as if afraid he would interrupt. "Please don't send me back today. I've been traveling for 5 days. I'm hungry and scared. I just need one night to rest before you decide what to do with me." The last word landed hard. What to do with me? Jasper stared at her, and the anger that had been ready to explode did something he didn't expect. It drained away, leaving something heavier behind. Not pity, not softness. A cold, clear recognition. This wasn't a mistake. It was a sacrifice made by a girl who had learned her life belonged to other people's debts. If you're listening right now, tell me where you're listening from, what city, what country. Leave it in the comments because I want to know how far this train station moment travels. Jasper took a slow breath and forced his voice steady. "Come on," he said gruffly, and hated that even kindness sounded harsh in his mouth. "My wagon's over there. You can eat, you can sleep, then we'll talk." Beatrice's shoulders sagged with relief, so sudden it was almost painful to watch. She nodded once, small, as if she didn't trust her voice. As they walked toward the wagon, Jasper felt the stares of the station crowd crawling over them. He wanted to turn and warn them off, wanted to make it clear that whatever this was, it was not their entertainment. But he didn't, not yet, because he was still trying to understand what he had just agreed to bring home. Before we continue, let me ask you, where are you listening from today? Whether you're at home or on the road, I wish you a warm and joyful Christmas. Now, let's get back to the story. The wagon creaked as it pulled away from the station, wheels biting into the dry dirt road that led north toward the mountains. Behind them, Whitefish shrank quickly, as towns tended to do once a man decided not to look back. Beatrice sat stiffly on the edge of the bench seat, hands folded in her lap, eyes fixed on the line of trees ahead. She took up more space than the seat allowed, and she knew it. Her shoulders were hunched forward, her elbows tucked in tight, as if she could somehow make herself smaller by force of will, alone. Jasper noticed. He pretended not to. For nearly an hour, only the sound of hooves and wheels filled the air. The mountains rose gradually, blue and green, solid and indifferent. Jasper had always loved that about them. They did not care who a man was or what mistakes he made. They demanded the same effort from everyone. Finally, he spoke. "How old are you?" he asked, keeping his eyes on the road. There was a pause. 18, Beatrice said. 18 and 2 months. Jasper exhaled slowly through his nose. "That's younger than I was hoping to hear." "I'm legally grown," she said quickly, the words sharpened by long practice. "I can marry if I choose." "But you didn't choose," Jasper replied. "Did you?" Her silence was answer enough. After a moment she said quietly, "My father is very sick. Consumption. The doctor says he won't last the year. The ranch was already struggling, and when Dorothy ran off, well, there wasn't much left to save." "So you were sent," Jasper said. "Yes," Beatrice admitted. "But I came too. I knew what it meant." Jasper glanced at her, then really looked at the way her jaw was set, not in defiance, but in endurance, at the way her eyes never quite lifted all the way to meet his. "What did you think you were coming to?" he asked. Beatrice swallowed. "Work," she said. "Safety, maybe. A place where I wouldn't be in the way." The words lodged in Jasper's chest like a burr. He cleared his throat. "Tell me what you can do." She blinked, startled by the practical turn. "I can cook, sew, keep a house. I'm good with numbers. I've kept our ranch account since I was 14. Read and write? He says, hard work doesn't scare you? No, she said, almost surprised. It's the only thing I've ever been good for. Jasper winced at that, but said nothing. The wagon rolled on, dust curling behind them like a low cloud. All right, he said at last. Here's what we're going to do. Beatrice turned toward him, bracing herself. You'll stay at my homestead, Jasper continued. You'll work for me. Housekeeping, books, whatever needs doing. I'll pay you fair wages. We'll tell folks we're married because the territory isn't kind to unmarried women living alone with a man. But there will be no husband's rights, no expectations beyond honest work and mutual respect. She stared at him, mouth slightly open. And when you've saved enough money, he added, or when your situation changes, you're free to leave. No debt, no obligation. You do that? She asked softly, even though I'm not what you wanted? Jasper nodded once. Because you're 18 and you were put in an impossible position. I won't make it worse. For a long moment, Beatrice said nothing. Then her shoulders trembled. Thank you, she whispered. I won't waste this, I swear. I'm not giving you charity, Jasper said firmly. I'm giving you a chance. Those aren't the same thing. The homestead came into view near dusk. Beatrice stared as they approached. The cabin was solid and well built, smoke curling from the chimney. A barn stood nearby, neat and sturdy. Chickens scratched in the yard. Beyond that, cattle grazed on rolling pasture, backed by forest and mountain. You built all this yourself? She asked. Over time, Jasper replied. It didn't happen overnight. He helped her down from the wagon, his hands strong but careful. He did not grunt or strain. He did not comment on her weight. Beatrice noticed every one of those things. Inside, the cabin smelled of wood smoke and soap. It was plain, orderly, unmistakably a man's space. Jasper showed her the downstairs bedroom. This is yours, he said. I'll sleep in the loft. There's a lock on the door. Use it if you want. I trust you, Beatrice said quietly. That evening, she cooked dinner without being asked. A simple stew, well seasoned. Jasper watched her move around the kitchen, efficient and focused, and wondered how many years she had been proving her usefulness to earn space in the world. When they sat to eat, Beatrice served him first, then herself, a portion so small it barely covered the bottom of the bowl. That all you're having? Jasper asked. She flushed. I shouldn't eat much. You've been traveling for days, he said. Eat! She hesitated, then added more stew, hands shaking slightly. It wasn't romance that settled over the table as they ate. It was something quieter, a truce, a beginning neither of them had planned. Outside, the mountains darkened as night came on. Inside, for the first time in a long while, the cabin did not feel empty. The mountains closed around them as the days passed, tall and watchful, the kind that made a person feel small until they learned how to stand properly within them. Beatrice learned quickly. The first week was quiet and careful. Jasper showed her the boundaries of the land, the locations of the root cellar, the smokehouse, the spring where water stayed cold even in summer. He spoke little, but when he did, it mattered. He explained why certain fences were placed where they were, why some pastures were rested, why winter preparation began long before the first frost. Beatrice listened the way people listen when they know this knowledge might save their life someday. The contrast between inside and outside was stark. Beyond the cabin walls, the world was sharp and demanding. Wind cut through clothing, the sun burned without mercy. The ground did not forgive missteps. Inside, there was firelight, the steady knock of a ladle against a pot, the smell of bread rising slowly in warmth. At night, Beatrice lay awake in the narrow bed, listening to the wind move through the trees. She expected fear to come for her once the exhaustion faded. Instead, what came was something more unsettling. Safety. It made her uneasy, because safety had always been temporary in her life. During the day, she worked. She reorganized the pantry without being asked, labeling jars, rotating stores the way her mother once had. She balanced Jasper's ledgers and quietly corrected errors that would have cost him come winter. When she finished her assigned tasks, she found more. There was always more to do. Too much, Jasper noticed. "Sit," he told her one afternoon when he found her scrubbing a floor that was already clean. "I'm almost done," she said, not looking up. "I didn't ask how long it would take," he replied. "I said, sit." She froze, fear flashing across her face. Then she obeyed, lowering herself carefully onto a chair. "You don't need to earn your place here every minute of the day," Jasper said. "You're allowed to rest." Beatrice clasped her hands together. "If I stop working, I don't know who I am." The honesty of it hit harder than complaint ever could. Jasper nodded once. "Then we'll figure that out in pieces." They traveled into town together once a week. Beatrice dreaded it at first. Towns remembered face, and they were rarely kind to bodies like hers. People stared. Some whispered. A few smirked openly. Jasper noticed every single one. He did not confront. He did something far more effective. He treated Beatrice as his equal, asked her opinion at the mercantile, let her negotiate prices, deferred to her judgment when choosing supplies. When a shopkeeper addressed him and ignored her, Jasper waited until the man corrected himself or lost the sale. Slowly, the stares changed. Curiosity replaced mockery. Respect crept in where disdain had lived. On the trail home one evening, Beatrice finally spoke what had been circling her thoughts for days. "Why are you doing this?" she asked. "You could have sent me away." Jasper kept his eyes forward. "Because sending you away would have been easy and wrong." She considered that. "Most people choose easy." "I know," he said. "I've been most people before." The journey back to the cabin took them through a narrow mountain pass, shadowed even at midday. The air grew cooler, the scent of pine sharp and clean. Beatrice wrapped her shawl tighter around her shoulders. "This place scares me sometimes," she admitted. Jasper nodded. It should. The mountains demand respect, but they also protect what's inside them. When the cabin came into view, smoke curling upward like a promise kept, Beatrice felt something unfamiliar settle into her chest. Not hope. Belonging. That night, as she washed dishes and Jasper split kindling by the door, she caught herself humming. The sound startled her into silence. Jasper looked up. "Don't stop." She hesitated. Then she continued, soft and unpolished, the kind of song a woman sings when no one is meant to hear. Jasper listened without comment, and Beatrice felt, for the first time in her life, that her presence was not being tolerated. It was being welcomed. Life in the cabin settled into a rhythm shaped by necessity and small, quiet kindnesses. Morning came early. Jasper rose before the sun, moving carefully so the floorboards would not creak. Beatrice always heard him anyway. She lay still, listening to the sounds that told her the day had begun. The door opening, the scrape of boots, the low murmur he used when speaking to the horses. When she rose, the fire was usually already coaxed back to life. Jasper never mentioned it. He acted as if the warmth had always been there. They worked side by side without crowding one another. Beatrice learned the patterns of the homestead quickly. Mondays were for bread and laundry, Tuesdays for accounts and inventory. She learned how to dry herbs properly, how to store root vegetables so they would last through winter, how to read the sky for signs of weather turning. Jasper watched without hovering. When she asked questions, he answered plainly. When she made a mistake, he corrected it once and never brought it up again. The cabin changed under her care. A tablecloth appeared one evening, stitched from scrap fabric. Shelves were reorganized. A small vase with wild flowers showed up near the window. None of it was extravagant, but it softened the edges of a life built around survival. Jasper noticed most of the way the cabin sounded different. There was more movement, more life, less silence pressing in at night. One evening, after supper, Beatrice stood uncertainly near the table. "You don't have to do this," Jasper said, seeing her hesitation. "I want to," she replied, then swallowed. I don't want to overstep." He nodded toward the wash basin. "Then we'll do it together." They washed dishes side by side, sleeves rolled up, water steaming in the basin. Jasper handed her plates without comment. Beatrice dried them carefully, methodical and precise. It felt oddly intimate, this shared task, and both of them were aware of it. Later, Jasper pulled a blanket from the chest and laid it carefully on the downstairs bed. "Winter comes fast here," he said. "Best to be ready." Beatrice nodded, touched by the thoughtfulness. She waited, half expecting him to say more, to explain himself. He didn't. That restraint mattered. As weeks passed, Jasper began to notice things he had not expected to notice. Beatrice laughed, quietly at first, then more freely. She had a dry wit that slipped out when she felt safe enough to let it. She spoke to the animals as if they were co-workers rather than burdens. The cattle responded to her calm voice. Even the chickens seemed less skittish around her. She also worked too hard. Jasper caught her one afternoon, rubbing her knees, breath tight with pain, before straightening quickly when she realized he was there. "You're done for the day," he said. "They're still done," he repeated. She hesitated. Old fear rose to the surface. "If I stop, you'll think I'm lazy." Jasper set down the tool he was holding. "Beatrice, I don't measure a person by how much suffering they can endure. Sit." She sat. He brought her a mug of tea, set it in her hands. "Rest is not failure," he said. "It's how you last." She stared into the steam, eyes wet. "No one ever said that to me before." "I know," Jasper replied quietly. That night, Beatrice slept without waking once. The townspeople began to talk. At first it was speculation. Who was the big young woman living up at Whitfield's place? Why she never seemed afraid? Why Jasper deferred to her in public? A few men laughed. A few women frowned. None of them said anything to Jasper's face. Until one did. It happened at the Mercantile. A man Jasper barely knew leaned over the counter and smirked. "Didn't know you were desperate enough to take whatever they sent," he said. "Society must be scraping the barrel." The room went quiet. Jasper did not raise his voice. He did not threaten. He simply turned fully toward the man. "She's smarter than you," Jasper said evenly. "Works harder than you. keeps better accounts than the bank in Helena, and she's under my protection. Choose your next words carefully." The man laughed weakly and backed down. Beatrice stood frozen, heart racing. She had learned to endure insult quietly. This was different. This was defense offered without being asked for. On the ride home, she spoke at last. "You didn't have to do that." "Yes, I did," Jasper replied, "because silence teaches people they're right." She looked at him then, really looked, and felt something shift, not attraction, trust. As autumn deepened, evenings grew longer. They spent more time by the fire, talking. Jasper told her about his early years in the mountains, the mistakes he'd made, the winters that nearly killed him. Beatrice spoke of her mother, gone too soon, and the quiet way her absence had hollowed their home. One night, without thinking, Beatrice asked, "Why did you order a bride?" The question hung between them, fragile. Jasper considered his answer carefully. "Because I was lonely," he said, "and tired of pretending I wasn't." She nodded. "I'm glad you did." "So am I," he replied, surprising them both. The words changed something. Not suddenly, not dramatically, but the air felt different afterward, as if a door had been left open where one had always been shut. Snow came early that year. The first storm trapped them inside for 2 days. Wind rattled the shutters. The world outside vanished into white. Inside, the cabin was warm. Jasper read aloud from an old book while Beatrice mended. Their shoulders brushed once accidentally. Neither moved away. That night, as the fire burned low, Jasper spoke softly. "You're safe here," he said, "no matter what happens next." Beatrice swallowed, emotion thick in her throat. "I believe you." Outside, the storm howled. Inside, something steady and fragile and real was taking root. Trouble rarely arrived all at once. It crept in quietly, disguised as obligation, memory, and the past, refusing to stay buried. The letter came in late October, carried by a writer who looked at Beatrice a second too long before tipping his hat and leaving. Jasper watched her read it at the table, her hands beginning to shake before she reached the end. "It's from home," she said. Jasper did not ask which home. He waited. "My father is worse," Beatrice continued, voice thin but controlled. "The doctor says he won't make it through winter, and Dorothy—" She stopped, swallowing hard. "Dorothy is gone again, left her gambler, took what little money they had, and disappeared." Jasper felt anger spark, sharp and immediate, but he kept his voice level. "What does your father want?" Beatrice folded the letter carefully, as if neatness might keep it from hurting. "He wants me to come back. He says he needs me, says I owe him." The word landed heavy between them. "You don't owe anyone your life," Jasper said. She gave a sad smile. "I know that now, but knowing and choosing are different things." That night, Beatrice barely touched her supper. She sat by the fire afterward, staring into the flames like they might offer instruction. Jasper said nothing, but he stayed close, his presence steady. The next morning, 2 men rode up to the homestead. Jasper saw them first from the ridge and felt his instincts tighten. Outsiders didn't come this far without reason. He waited at the fence as they dismounted. The taller one spoke. "Name's Thomas Reed. This is Caleb Miller. We're here on behalf of Silas Hartford." Beatrice went still behind Jasper. "Silas Hartford is Beatrice's father," Reed continued. "He claims his daughter was taken under false pretenses, says she was meant to return home once her sister failed to fulfill a contract." Jasper's voice was calm. "She's here by agreement. She works for me. She's paid." Reed glanced past him, eyes flicking toward Beatrice. "That's so, miss." Beatrice stepped forward before Jasper could stop her. Her voice trembled, but it did not break. "I wasn't taken," she said. "I came because I was told I had to. I stayed because I chose to." Miller snorted. "You expect us to believe that?" Jasper took one step closer. "You expect me to let you speak to her like that on my land?" Reed raised a hand. "Easy. We're not here to force anything. Yet. But her father is dying, and there's property involved. If she leaves, matters get simpler." Beatrice's hands curled into fists at her sides. Years of being told her existence was a solution to other people's problems pressed in on her chest. Jasper turned to her then, deliberately, in front of them both. "What do you want?" he asked. The question stunned her. Not what should you do, not what do they expect. What do you want? Beatrice drew a shaky breath. "I want to stay." Reed sighed. "Then this won't be the last time someone comes asking." Jasper nodded once. "Then it won't be the last time they leave empty-handed." The men rode off, their expressions dark. That evening, Beatrice broke. She sat on the edge of the bed, shoulders caving inward, years of obedience clawing back to the surface. "If I stay," she whispered, "he'll die thinking I abandoned him." Jasper knelt in front of her, careful, grounding. "Beatrice, he abandoned you long before you ever left. Loving someone does not mean surrendering yourself." She looked at him, eyes full of fear. "What if I'm wrong?" "Then we'll live with that together," Jasper said. "You don't have to choose alone anymore." The next confrontation came sooner than expected. A week later, Reed returned, this time with papers, legal ones, claims of guardianship, accusations of coercion, whispered threats of lawmen and reputation. The cabin felt smaller as Reed spoke. His words meant to corner, to shame. Jasper listened. Then he spoke slowly, clearly. "She is 18. She is employed. She is paid. She can read your documents and understand them better than you can, and she has told you she is staying." He turned to Beatrice. "Tell him again." Beatrice's voice shook, but it carried. "I am staying. This is my home." Reed studied her, seeing something he hadn't expected. Resolve. He left without another word. That night, Beatrice cried quietly by the fire. Jasper sat beside her, not touching, letting her feel the choice settle fully into her bones. For the first time in her life, someone had asked what she wanted and stood by the answer. Outside, the wind moved through the trees. Beatrice finally understood something she had never been allowed to believe. She was not a burden. She was not a solution to someone else's failure. She was a woman who had chosen her own life. Winter announced itself without apology. The first real snow came down hard and fast, burying the valley in white silence and sealing the cabin off from the rest of the world. Jasper welcomed it. Snow meant isolation. Isolation meant fewer chances for the past to come knocking. But conflict rarely respected weather. It arrived on horseback 2 weeks later. Beatrice saw them first through the window, 3 dark shapes moving against the snow like a bad memory returning. Her chest tightened. She did not need to be told who they were. Lawmen. Jasper was already reaching for his coat. "They won't take you," he said calmly, as if stating a fact as simple as the temperature. "But you need to stand with me, not behind me." Beatrice nodded, though fear pulsed through her veins. For 18 years, confrontation had meant humiliation. Silence had been safer, obedience easier. But this time, running would cost her everything she had just learned to claim. The sheriff dismounted slowly, eyes sweeping the homestead with open judgment. He was not from Whitefish. That alone told Jasper this had been arranged. "Jasper Whitfield," the sheriff said, "I'm here regarding a complaint of coercion and unlawful restraint involving Miss Beatrice Hartford." Jasper did not move aside. "You're on private land. State your authority." The sheriff held up papers. Claim of guardianship filed by her father, supporting statements alleging deception and improper influence. Beatrice stepped forward. The sheriff blinked, clearly not expecting that. "I am Beatrice Hartford," she said. Her voice was steady, though her hands trembled. "I am 18 years old. I am employed here. I receive wages. I am not restrained, and I am not leaving." The sheriff studied her, then looked back at Jasper. "She's young." "So was every adult once," Jasper replied. "Doesn't make them property." One of the deputies snorted. "She doesn't look capable of surviving on her own." Beatrice turned toward him fully. "I survived a lifetime of being told I was nothing," she said. "This is easier." The words hung in the frozen air. The sheriff cleared his throat. "Miss Hartford, are you here of your own free will?" "Yes." "No threats?" "No." "No promises made in exchange for your staying?" Beatrice glanced at Jasper, then back at the sheriff. "Only respect." Silence stretched. Finally, the sheriff folded the papers. "Then there's nothing for me to enforce. Guardianship doesn't apply to adults, especially those who can speak for themselves." He mounted his horse and turned back once. "Your father won't stop trying." Beatrice lifted her chin. "Then I won't stop choosing." The lawmen rode away, their figures swallowed by the snow. Only then did Beatrice's knees give out. Jasper caught her before she hit the ground, steady and sure, his arms solid around her. She shook violently, adrenaline draining all at once. "You did it," he said quietly. "You stood your ground." "I was terrified," she admitted into his coat. "So was I," he said. "Courage isn't the absence of fear. It's refusing to let fear decide." That night, the storm howled outside, shaking the walls, testing the roof. Inside, the fire burned low and steady. Beatrice sat wrapped in a blanket, staring at the flames. "If you hadn't been here," Jasper answered without hesitation, "you would still have been worth fighting for." She looked at him then, really looked at him, and something shifted between them. Not urgency, not desperation, recognition. They were no longer protector and protected. They were allies. When Beatrice finally spoke, her voice was soft but unafraid. "I don't feel like a mistake anymore." Jasper swallowed. "You never were." Outside, winter tightened its grip. Inside, something unbreakable had taken root. The cabin glowed against the snow like a promise kept. Winter settled fully into the mountains, deep and relentless. But inside the walls of the homestead, something gentler took hold. The days grew quieter, slower, not empty, intentional. Beatrice learned the rhythm of winter living. She rose before dawn to stoke the fire, her movements careful and practiced. She baked bread twice a week, the smell filling the cabin and clinging to the rafters. She kept the books by lamplight, her neat handwriting steady and precise, planning not just for survival, but for spring. Jasper watched all of it with a quiet awe he did not try to hide. One evening, as snow whispered against the windows, he said, "You've made this place better." Beatrice looked up from her sewing. "I just did what needed doing." "That's the difference," he replied. "You saw what needed doing." She felt warmth rise to her cheeks, not shame this time, but something closer to pride. They spent long nights talking, not grand confessions, just stories. Jasper spoke of his first winter alone, the mistakes that nearly killed him. Beatrice spoke of her mother, of learning numbers at the kitchen table, of the way books had been her first refuge. Sometimes they sat in silence, companionable and unafraid. Jasper whittled. Beatrice read aloud when her voice felt strong enough. The world beyond the cabin receded, losing its sharp edges. One night, after the fire burned low, Beatrice said, "Do you ever regret it?" "Regret what?" "Ordering a bride," she said, "getting me instead." Jasper did not answer immediately. He considered the question with the seriousness it deserved. "No," he said finally. "I regret believing I knew what I needed before I knew you." She nodded, absorbing that. "I was afraid you'd wake up one morning and see me clearly and then send me away." He met her eyes. "I see you clearly now." The words settled between them, heavy and gentle all at once. Spring came slowly. The snow retreated at inch by inch, revealing earth ready to be worked again. Jasper's leg, once injured, had healed enough for hard labor. Beatrice stood beside him in the thawed fields, directing, planning, already thinking seasons ahead. One afternoon, Jasper stopped in the middle of the pasture and turned to her. "This started as an arrangement," he said, "a protection, a way out." Beatrice's heart thudded painfully. "Yes." "It doesn't feel like that anymore," he continued, "and I won't pretend it does." She held her breath. "I won't ask you to stay because you owe me," Jasper said. "I won't ask you because it's easier. I'm asking because I want a life with you, not as a replacement, not as a solution, as my wife. Only if you choose it freely." The mountains were quiet around them. No witnesses, no pressure. Beatrice felt the weight of her life before this moment, every command she had obeyed, every role she had been forced to fill. Then she felt the ground beneath her feet, solid, earned. "I choose you," she said, "not because I need shelter, but because this feels like home." Jasper exhaled, a breath he had been holding longer than he realized, and took her hands. His grip was steady, reverent. That night, the cabin lights burned late, not with urgency, with certainty. Outside, spring waited. Two people who had been underestimated their entire lives finally stepped into a future chosen, not assigned. Some love stories begin with desire. Others begin with rescue. This one began with choice. Beatrice was never what was ordered. She was what arrived when someone finally stopped believing the world's narrow definitions of worth. In a place where survival demanded honesty, she learned that value is proven not by size or expectation, but by courage, intelligence, and the will to stand your ground. Jasper did not save her. He listened when she chose herself. If this story found you tonight, Tell me where you are listening from. Across mountains, oceans, or quiet rooms, these stories travel farther than we think. And if you believe that home is not assigned but chosen, stay with me. The next story is already waiting.